This college baseball news dump edition of the college baseball experience is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up today with the promo code TCE SGPN to score up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's spelled RITHMM. And it is showtime. Welcome back to the college baseball experience. Long time no talk. Yeah, it's been about a month and a half since the last time we put out a show. And I'm going to attempt to cover a lot of the news topics that happened during the time off. And then we'll sparingly jump back in and do kind of the same thing. Today on first off, my name is Noah Bieniek, aka 77. First off, today on the back end of the episode, basically the bulk of the episode, I brought on Jack DeLongchamps to basically just scratch our itch of talking ball. Both of us have, I mean, kind of been texting each other since January of this season, and getting him on the show was a long time coming. I want to thank him, and I appreciate him taking the time out of his day because he had work his day job during the day, and then also he was calling a high school football game in between the hour that we did talking to each other about college baseball. But that was going to be basically the show until Coach Runes of D1 Baseball did a Sunday conversation with two Big Ten head coaches, Michigan's Tracy Smith, Northwestern's Ben Greenspan. Both of them good buddies. Both of them were on the Indiana coaching staff that went to Omaha. And there was some breaking news that they talked about during this show, and also some newsworthy topics that, you know what, I would have felt terrible if I didn't talk about and cover it on this show, since I'm titling it basically a college baseball news dump. So here's the breaking news, the first piece of it. And I don't think this is even the best part about it, but Big Ten regular season is being expanded from 8 weeks to 10 weeks. Some may think, oh, that's a nothing burger. It's only 2 more extra series. Well, instead of somebody going 12-12 in conference, now you can go 15-15 and it looks a little bit better, or you go 13-11 and you're 2 games above 500 instead of that 16-14 that the SEC has used, and they now have 16 quality wins instead of 13. It just moves that meter just a little bit extra, and the Big Ten can't schedule as well because of the geography. And that's the second part about this. Tracy Smith, the Wolverines head coach, was hinting at a Big Ten baseball weekend, one neutralized location, one centralized neutral location for a bunch of Big Ten baseball teams to play a weekend series at, which would be outstanding. I love this idea. I don't know how I didn't think of this, but I'm glad that the Big Ten is. You just send about 8 teams to this location. So send 8 teams to spring training in Florida, send 8 teams to spring training in Arizona, basically for one weekend, play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A bunch of fan bases get to go hang out, grill out, do whatever an SEC typical baseball weekend is. We get to actually enjoy that in February. That was a main voice of concern throughout the show. They can't. The Big Ten programs in my backyard cannot play home games until late March, early April. Even that, it's still 45 degrees. but they're just at a geographical disadvantage. And they were talking about also trying to move back the beginning of the college baseball season a week or two in Rune's case. But we were using the example of the MLB draft is currently the second week in July, but um, everybody in the scouting industry hates that date. So I don't know how long that's going to last. And I don't know if moving the season because we have extra time with the draft being further back is the correct move for that specific reasoning. There could definitely be other logistical, rational reasoning for moving the uh, sports begin date back. I mean, one could be, hey, you get a lot more eyeballs after March Madness, after the NCAA basketball tournament ends. You're not going to move it back an entire month, but you can move it back until conference season begins at that point. Anyways, the big part that I'm really excited about is the neutral location of possibly like a Big Ten baseball weekend. I'm also happy that they're playing 10 conference series now, but this is very exciting to me personally. I would be there in a heartbeat if something like this could happen. Oh my god, that would make covering the conference so easy as well. The second thing is the Big Ten tournament is expanding from 8 to 12 teams over there in Charles Schwab Field, Omaha, where they've hosted the tournament the last few years. Again, only 4 teams. We'll see how the bracket is formatted. Again, the Big Ten hasn't officially announced this, but Ben Greenspan, the head coach of Northwestern, was telling Rooney on the D1 Baseball podcast that it will be happening. So I felt like including it on this episode of the College Baseball Experience. When I'll be right back, I'll be talking about the NCAA tournament format changes they were talking about too. But first, let me pause for station identification because the war against corporate gambling is heating up and SGPN needs you to be a part of it. If you could take a couple of seconds out of your day to rate, review, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, like wherever you're listening to this podcast or show on YouTube or any platform out there. The college baseball experience, the college basketball experience, the college football experience, the sports gambling podcast. Go over there, leave a review, share your love. Most importantly, tell a friend because word of mouth is the heartbeat of SGPN. And Underdog Fantasy Pick'em is always adding to their awesome menu. Now they have first touchdown projections. There are a ton of ways to win in NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, and more. Their lobby is jam-packed with profit boosts and no sweat entries. Now you can use these special boosts on all flex entries. So sign up today with the promo code TCE SGPN and claim your special pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE SGPN. So the second big thing that they were talking about pertains to the specific NCAA tournament. Um, Rooney mentioned a stat that in the last 5 years, I believe it was 5 years, since the COVID year, the Big Ten has only had one host team out of the 16 hosts each season. The only team was Maryland in 2022. They were talking about how that could change. And honestly, they were talking about how it could honestly be better for the entire landscape of college baseball by adding 32 hosts in the 64 team field. I like the idea. And honestly, the 32 host idea would mean that it's 3-game series. That's what the regular season is. Um, Now there is a hesitancy that I have is regionals is kind of a little bit of a warm up for the College World Series format. However, you play the entire year learning strategies and deploying the strategies to win series. I don't think series should be ditched in regional play in the NCAA tournament. And Greenspan of Northwestern was even talking about it. some teams get the luxury of throwing off based on matchup in the first round, and it sets them up in the second round even better. And it's not necessarily all the time the one seed. Sometimes the two seed gets to be able to throw off based on their opponent. Um, and it's all luck of the draw, and it's not really based on skill. And sometimes that is all the difference, and it gives you a huge leg up in your regional. Removing that and just having it be one up against each other. You go ace on Friday, or if you want to go ace on Saturday, and then you throw your two on Friday, or you throw your three on Friday. It makes that whole strategy super, super interesting heading into a regional weekend 3-game series instead of a regional weekend where you could play up to 5 games. Again, it's like limiting the usage of arms as well. There's a lot of good that could come out of only 3 games in a regional instead of possibly 5. Um, the second that they were talking about was tournament expansion. I'm not the biggest fan of tournament expansion. Their example that they were talking about in Greenspan again was a fan of expansion, saying that 72 teams was what he would choose, and he would choose 32 hosts, which would mean that there would be 8 play-in games. So that Thursday before regional Friday begins in the NCAA tournament, there would be 8 elimination one or done games. And in the sport of baseball, I have never been a fan of one and done. There's just a lot of fluky things that happen in a baseball game that sometimes can't be controlled. And some of it is arm rest and shit. I would love for my ace to be healthy, or not healthy, but rested and ready to go in that game. But you see it in the MLB postseason all the time. Sometimes they're not, and that's why they got rid of the one game, do or die, go home, win or go home scenario in the wild card. Because it makes the regular season of 162 games worthless if you go home after one game. Um, if you weren't able to prove that you were quality enough of a team to get into a 64 team field, I you weren't a good enough team to get into a 64 team field. I don't know what else to say to you. Um, a lot of times this is cut and dry. So I feel like this season particularly, the committee didn't have any egregious mistakes. And even if it was to benefit your mid majors, you realize there's only max 2 mid majors getting in, and then you're just getting 6 mediocre around 500 power conference teams in, and the other 8 spots. It's uh I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of expansion, but on the flip side of this next ad, we're going to jump into our conversation with Jack DeLongchamps of 11.7 and the Pencil Talk podcast. It was a fun one, and I really do hope you guys enjoy. And yeah, this is a little bit of a longer show, but I wanted to touch on the newsworthy topics that were talked about on the D1 Baseball podcast, Sunday Night Conversations with Rooney, Tracy Smith of Michigan, and Ben Greenspan of Northwestern. The college baseball experience is brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business, BetUS, who's been around for more than 40 years. Bet anywhere, and BetUS is available in tons of locations, including internationally. They just launched an all-new live betting experience where you can easily deposit your cryptocurrency and get lightning-fast payouts when you want to cash out. Use our link to sign up and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. Promo code SGPN so they know we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sports book. Have you ever wanted to create your own sports betting model for football, basketball, baseball? Do you even know what a sports betting model is? SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to create custom models, predicting betting models in seconds, and get predictions on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model or copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard. And Rhythm gives you predictions for every game and player prop, and also a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm, RITHMM. And now, here's Jack DeLongchamps. I want to welcome on a very special guest onto this episode of the College Baseball Experience, co-host of 11.7, the College Baseball Podcast, and founder of the Pencil Talk Podcast, the one and only rising star that is Jack DeLongchamps in college baseball. Jack, what's going on, dude?
The words are far, far too kind, man. I appreciate you having me on, though. No.
I'm excited for this. We've been talking, finally getting you on the show. I mean, shit, we were texting each other back in like January, and I was scheming on how I would be able to make, I think it was Arlington, when Michigan was in Arlington for a tournament. And I was like, dude, how in the world did you sleep in your car in Omaha for what, the 13 days that you were there? But I'll say this. I mean, you have risen really fast in college baseball media space, specifically 3 years ago, 2021, after your final year of playing ball. If I would have told you that you would be on the field with the Tennessee Volunteers celebrating the 2024 College World Series National Championship, what would you have said to me?
I would have told you that in the similar vein, the video game must be back out. And I'm probably like running my own dynasty like when I did when I was 8 years old playing college baseball on the old PlayStation 2. I probably created my own team, had all my buddies in the lineup, and that'd be the only way that I'd ever end up in the hallowed grounds of Charles Schwab Field. So, man, it's been a heck of a ride. Your words are far too kind, dude. Like I just love telling stories, and the college baseball world that was nothing but good to me. A roller coaster of a career in itself would be an understatement. What was a really below average like playing career, I've just fallen in love with the game at a really early age. So to find a way to just stick around it, 3 years ago, I'd have been excited and stoked, to say the least, that I'd still found a way to be around the game. But if you had told me I was running around with the Natty Champs, I'd have told you you're an idiot.
You really impressed me this year. I would consider me jealous because I had not thought of the idea of an RV in Omaha. And obviously, like, I'm from the north. I know that's pretty common for some Southerners to take the RV over to Omaha. Dude, yeah, that for me, that also being similar age as you, I ain't paying for a hotel. Give me that RV. I'm doing that. I think next year if I get credentialed into this thing. There was a whole drama for me last year with that. But dude, you parked that in the Creighton basketball arena parking lot?
Yeah. So, if you 2 years ago when I just started the broadcasting gig. I go George Mason, my alma mater. They end up making the regional. I go and chase them up to Wake Forest, and all of a sudden, like that's when like the Pencil Talk thing, which was strictly a resume deal, started to come to life. I go, well, if it works with Wake and it works with Mason, like, well, let's chase this thing. So that year, it was quite literally just me, my car, and the Crunch Fitness parking lot. This year, as we've kind of not leveled up, but you're like, all right, that was pretty uncomfortable. How do we make it semi-affordable, a little bit more cozy? And yeah, the RV was a no-brainer. I'm forever grateful to I guess a mentor and really just family of mine, Aaron Nielsen, who runs Harmony Sports Company. He lent me the RV, helped. Obviously, I'd pay like the insurance on it and I paid the gas to get out there. But when a La Quinta Inn is going for $700 a night in Omaha, dude, $1,200 in gas there and back, it didn't seem that bad.
Not at all. That's the way to go for sure. You opened a whole new realm of thought that I just, being from Michigan and like growing up until probably high school, not really even understanding a whole lot of college baseball, and that Michigan had a really good program under Eric Bakich at the time, is like all we watched and cared about was the Detroit Tigers. But RV to Omaha is definitely like in the cards for me in the future. Yeah, and I have you to thank for documenting your entire trip and pulling that off last year.
I appreciate it. It is it's a bucket list for sure. The Creighton basketball thing kind of came to life, to circle back to your question too, where it was like when you do get media credentialed, you have your own parking lot, and it's kind of mixed in with the tailgaters. When I showed up this year, they go, "Hey, you're credentialed to park here, but like we can't let your RV in." I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, "We don't let anybody bring an RV in, and you're the first media guy that's ever tried to." Like,
that's hilarious.
we're trying to figure out another option for it. I was like, "Well, it's either here or Walmart or Crunch." So like, kind of feels like this is the safest place for me to be. So the NCAA was unbelievable and really looked out for me in a way where they go, all right, cool. Like, obviously you're here, right? Like we can't send you home. Creighton basketball arena, seeing Coach McDermott and the squad kind of roll into practice every morning as I was making my coffee was definitely added to the story a little bit.
That's fun. So yeah, I mean, coffee, shower, did you take care of that in Creighton facilities? Where were you taking care of that?
That'll maybe be the level up next year. That would be a lot. You're looking at 3 Dasani water bottles over the dome, a nice cup of coffee at the hotel lobby next door. And then when I got real stinky, I just make a quick little drive up the road, Crunch Fitness, got a membership, work out for 10 minutes, and then jump in the shower. It's easy.
All right. My game plan is stalled a little bit, but I respect the grind. That's for sure. Dude, I'm a sweaty freaking mess, which by the way, I mean, we were talking pre-show and how so many people were in your mentions on a take that we might get to it a little bit. I went at Dodgers fans for not showing up to a Sunday afternoon game, watching Shohei Ohtani, chase 50-50. And a lot of them are complaining about weather, dude. Baseball weather, like 104. That's just another day in Omaha.
Dude, steamy. It's walking outside and your glasses steam up type weather. Man, if you're willing to go to battle with Dodgers Nation, sign me up. I'm all in. As a diehard Houston Astros fan, I'm ready to go to war, even in illogical senses. So yeah, kudos to you. But you're right. It is. There was a couple nights in Omaha where I'd have the generator on for a little bit, not trying to waste too much gas. But by the time you wake up in the morning, you had a nice little imprint of sweat in the mattress's sheet. So yeah, I feel you.
So let's talk about another place that you were at this spring, Hoover. The SEC baseball tournament has annually been hosted there since 1998. The city and conference this offseason signed an extension through 2028. And that 2028 year would be the 30th edition of the competition. Jack, excluding your dislocated toe, I'm assuming you had a blast in Hoover. How excited are you about this news?
No, I thought it was a perfect fit. Like, having never been to Hoover and really, as a college baseball fan from afar, the only thing I knew about it is they loved a good rain delay. They loved a 11 p.m. first pitch. But then getting there, boots on the ground or flops on the ground in my case, the dislocated toe, not fun. But being down there with Ben Upton, who obviously started 11.7 with his brother, Will, it was a freaking blast. And then, it was Ben's birthday. So I think a lot of that, may have had to do with so many people being so kind. But, dude, the tailgaters are, Omaha is the mecca of college baseball. Hoover might be 1B then because everyone's so damn happy. It's a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock and they're already thousands of people barbecuing and grilling and everyone's just ready to rock and roll. You add that to the idea that it might be some of the best baseball. You can make an argument that those 8 teams might be a little bit deeper than the 8 that you see in Omaha.
Correct.
All of a sudden, it's just a magical week. Hoover feels like the perfect fit. I know they extended through 28. It would feel weird if it was somewhere else. I know that there were coaches that had conversations about maybe moving to a more centralized area for all teams. But at the end of the day, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but that's what makes it so majestic is that it is in the middle of nowhere. And come Sunday when you had Tennessee and obviously getting ready to rock and roll and it was packed to the teeth, it just felt like the perfect spot. The hospitality was unbelievable. They had set up all the kids arcade games in this giant venue. And to take that away from that city that it feels like it was made, I don't know, it would feel very – I guess as the college sports landscape shifts, a lot of things are changing. It would feel very unnatural for it not to be there.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I haven't been yet, but you said middle of nowhere. It seems like a city that really gets up for this tournament once a year, and they really went out of their way most recently, like a couple of years ago, like improving the facilities around and adding some ballparks for practice facilities basically, and also just being a hell of a lot more welcoming to the SEC teams and embracing the party. And that has made it a lot of fun. And honestly, I never really understood the push for the SEC tournament to be moved away. I mean, 15,000 people at the Hoover Met is so much better than 15,000 people at Globe Life Field, where
Right.
it just kind of makes the crowd look like a high school game. The weather kind of created the main argument for the move, but honestly, the last 2 years, there's barely been any rain. So continue to cross my fingers when it comes to that. This season, there is going to be a new tournament format. Do you like the fact that all 16 teams from the SEC are going to automatically be playing in this single elimination formatted tournament to determine the SEC's auto bid?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think I circle back to maybe the quotes and words of Tim Corbin of Vanderbilt and obviously Jay Johnson at LSU. I thought hit the nail on the head where it's like, well, you're kind of taking away, like, I guess, making it special and unique. And with it just being single elimination, Coach Corbin said, hey, man, our fans get up for this. Like our fans make plans for this, right? I'm not saying that if we lose a game, we don't deserve to be out or but you got to think about the fans' perspective, right? By adding all 16 teams, you then go to single elimination. By not having that double elimination format, all of a sudden fans that have booked these trips to come see their team or their kids or their family play, they go one and done, and then you're just kind of stranded in Hoover. Hey, it's a great event. But they weren't traveling in to come see, another school. So, yeah, I think you lose a little bit of that element where you're guaranteed 2 games, right? A family can book a vacation at the end of their, kids' school year to go and watch this tournament for their team. So by not having that in place, that was Coach Corbin, I thought, elegantly laying it out like, hey, I understand with how deep this conference is about to become with adding of Texas and OU. Like, I get it, but also like take a step back and realize like there's a whole lot more at hand here than just like us on the field.
Yeah, I love that perspective, honestly. For me, I kind of thought of a little bit of a different way, but I think we both align. And, going back to what the format was last year and years prior, I hated the format. It went from winner go home in that first day to double elimination and then single elimination in the semifinals. To me, it was just a big headache trying to explain each and every year as the game continues to grow of college baseball. The SEC tournament, one of the biggest conference tournaments, if not the biggest, definitely the biggest, and only honestly smaller tournament than Omaha and College World Series. Explaining that it was not a simple bracket. Now you do turn to a simple bracket, 16 teams. My con is that it devalues the regular season a little bit if the SEC doesn't eliminate anybody from this playing field. But on the other hand, the overwhelming pro, and it lashes on to your point here, each fan base gets to enjoy a trip to Hoover. You just don't know how long it's going to be. Right. Specifically for the SEC too, with the expanded conference and the added depth of Texas and Oklahoma, you have Texas, one of the bluest blue bloods in the sport, and Oklahoma competed for a national championship in 2022. You're bound to get 11 or 12 auto bids. I mean, heck, I think they got 11 this year. Why wouldn't you, from the SEC's point of view, why wouldn't you allow the other 4 teams on the outside looking in to have a chance to steal a bid into the NCAA tournament? Because then you can say, they won 4 straight tournaments in our tournament, or 4 straight games in our tournament. They earned their spot. You could go a bunch of different ways here. That's kind of how my viewpoint is on that. Do you have any rebuttal to that at all? Or
No, I think we're in agreement in the idea too, where it's like, did I think Florida was I'm on the record saying, did I think Florida was a tournament team last year? I didn't think the resume said so. Put them on the diamond, and of course, I thought they could beat any team in the country. I go, you put this team in. Any 1 seed in the country is going to be furious that a 3 seed Florida is there with them, right? Like it wasn't hard to say, hey, a team that barely finishes over 500 didn't think they could get in. Did I think they were a top 5 most talented team in the country? Without question. I thought they had the best player in the history of the sport, right? So that's where I think having this layout and the tournament's really fun when you think about March Madness and NC State Coach is going to get fired. They make a magic run in the ACC tournament. They
I
make
know.
a run in March Madness. When you look at the SEC tournament, I've had plenty of coaches off the record go, it's harder to win here than in a regional. I'm just telling you. Like, it's harder to win here than in a think about that. You had Georgia go one and done. They make a super and they're in a great spot. Like, they lose that first game, still hold on to their national host seed. They're in a better spot because all of a sudden, like, their pitchers get to rest a little bit. So does that devalue how special this is when they know that the grand all be all goal is to go win a national championship? Well, in the same boat, your national champions won the SEC tournament, and winners just keep on winning. So to your point, man, like, yeah, dude, put 16 in, let them beat the hell out of each other, because at the end of the day, everyone in the country knows this is, without question, the most dangerous conference in baseball.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm just going to thank the SEC for delivering us some newsworthy topics throughout the college baseball offseason, because now we're able to dissect the SEC regular season schedule. Jack, I know how well the LSU program has treated you these past few years. I'm going to need to know, dude, like, if you had a machine that you could just transport anywhere in seconds, SEC Weekend 7, which series are you attending? Tennessee at LSU or Texas at Texas A&M?
So I'll put it to you like this, and I've picked a lot of fans off since Texas's arrival in the SEC. I grew up a massive Longhorns fan, right? Yeah. Like a massive Longhorns fan. But to be there in person, kind of when it all unfolded post-national championship, where it's like, you want to talk about waking up with a gnarly hangover, your team loses in game 3, you're in College Station, then you find out your coach is deuced to the arch rival, and the rivalry is now renewed with you getting to see each other next year.
Yeah.
As good as Tennessee and LSU have been to me, and don't think I'm not going to try to pull off a little college game day set at the box this year. I legitimately think that you could put Texas and Texas A&M on a national network. ESPN 1, not 2, not you, 1.
The four-letter network.
All 4.
Maybe even the 3 with ABC.
Yeah, put them on ABC. And then create a WWE type hype reel. And I really think that, like, to say that the benches might clear, this is going to be some of the most tenacious animosity on a diamond that we've seen in a long time. Like, they're not going to like each other. A&M has returned everybody and then some. Texas is Texas. Right. So send me to the great state. Send deep in the heart of Texas, and I want to watch the WWE-esque fight unfold.
Oh man, I totally forgot that, like, just the element of being there. Did you know, like, I'm sure you've been asked this a couple times. Did you notice at all? Was there anything weird? Like, I mean, this was a team that was competing for a national championship, and there were rumors about this, like, going, like, just the flirting, I guess, for lack of a better term, between Schloss and Del Conte, like, back to, like, the Georgia series. It was rumored. So, like, It was for a good 2 months. To me, it's, like, unbelievable how impressive that run was from a player standpoint. And it really kind of changed my whole viewpoint on, you know, they've got a brand new coach, and he's never been a head coach before at the D1 level, in Michael Early. But last year they were a player-led team, and they went to the national championship, and their coach was out the door.
1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? Like, there's no debating that, right? Whatever you want to have to say about the entire situation with Schloss leaving kind of at midnight, like the Baltimore Colts, like, to me, the entire dialogue around what happens next. If you're asking me, did anyone have any sense? Maybe on my end, I always try to tell people, like, I'm not trying to be a Schefter or, like, I'm not trying to break news. Like, I just like telling stories. So I had no idea even before that Schloss and Del Conte had a relationship, right? Like, I think I don't know. I learned it like everybody else did, just reading stories the following. I always thought, like, I thought it was fun to create this buzz that, hey, Texas was going to go get a big guy, right? Kendall over at D1, like, kept tweeting, oh, this is going to be a big splash.
It was weird. It was weird.
He kept saying it. So I was like, because I'd gotten pretty close to my friends in Knoxville, where I go, hey, yeah, Tony goes and wins one here. Goes and wins one. Then he goes to Austin. Like, he leaves one place in a better spot. Then he goes and hangs out in Austin for like $10 million a year. Like, it's a win-win for everybody, right? Just kind of like picking at him a little bit. because that would be the biggest high, right? If you're trying to make a big splash, that would be he's the best.
I mean,
biggest in baseball, right?
They just extended him in the offseason too. He's now the richest man in college baseball, $3 million annually. Frank Anderson, Josh Elander receiving salary bonuses, and that's through 2029. So,
to me, those rumors came out that there was a conversation between Texas, the UT, and the other UT, where it was like, what's going to happen here? They stay loyal to their roots. Like to say that anyone saw this coming, I think would be a giant shock, especially the guys in that dugout. But I do want to like put the ribbon on it, not to like badmouth anyone, but like you make a decision to leave, no worries. There was no reason to lie about it if you were Schloss, right? Like, hey, this is kind of what I've decided to do. It's the best move for me and my family. A&M's response by hiring Micah early was, I thought, the best decision imaginable. There's a reason. Those guys didn't come back on like a rah-rah tweet. They came back because they respect the hell out of Michael early. First time head coach, I don't give a damn. Guy like garnished respect from not only like some of the best players in the country, but guys that had been playing for him for the last year. So there's a reason all those dudes came back and wanted, another year of eligibility that didn't enter the draft and came back. Like that rivalry is going to be so gnarly. And man, it's got the right guy running it. If you're an Aggie fan.
Yeah, and I mean the Aggie fan base is so fired up, and this thing, I mean that ballpark, the $80 million ballpark renovation has been like pushed through. There's no issues with this thing anymore. Like let's fucking do this. And speaking of the other ballpark with Vitello, the $98.5 million Lindsey Nelson Stadium renovation, that's been delayed until 2026, but they're still super excited for that, and they've got Tony tied down. So I don't think anything negative is coming out of that. Just another year where you're going to have to deal with no elevator, I think is the press box talking about that.
Something that they know they wanted to fix, but like we talked about this too, but doesn't it kind of feel, not to take away the effort and work that they put in on a daily basis, but they've got it like on autopilot, right? Like some places have to recruit you with like fancy new toys or big new buildings. Yeah. Every time that guy opens his mouth, every college baseball player in the country is going, "Oh, I will really want to go play for him."
Yeah. He's the ultimate kind of player's coach. I mean, you look at the 2022 team with like the actions on the field, and you look at the 2024 team, like he's able to, coach up multiple different groups of players, let them play, or kind of, that last year's team was so professional, and there's going to be 6 or 7 pros from that team. It turns out, I mean, I'll put money on it for sure.
Love that.
I mean, so the fact that Tennessee has kind of risen up, I mean, not super fast. This has been established now. I mean, they've been the best program for the last 4 years, but they've surpassed Vanderbilt in the state, and that's huge. And I'm super interested to see how the Commodores react to it. And Jack, do you like I mean, this could be, in the grand scheme of things, really kind of a nothing burger, but the SEC has eliminated the East and West divisions. Instead of having 2 regular season division champions, now there's only going to be 1 outright regular season conference champion. Do you have any opinion on that or no?
I don't know. Doesn't it feel like we're moving in that direction anyways in all sports? Like it's just going to be a mega conference, right? Like I don't really have a problem with it as long as we're able to maintain those rivalries. Like those 2 teams have to play every year because it means a ton to that fan base on obviously on both campuses. So I kind of like there's a way to blend the old with the new. Like as long as we're maintaining a certain set of traditions and standards, like I got no problem with where you're taking it as long as you're willing to uphold those, which it sounds like the conference is willing to do.
Yeah, and let's talk about those rivalry series. Which one are you most interested in, whether it be storyline, whether it be returning production from both teams for this upcoming season? So starting with that Vanderbilt at Tennessee matchup, that's in weekend 9. Also weekend 9, Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Weekend 2, Georgia at Florida. Weekend 4, Alabama at Auburn. Weekend 10, Texas at Oklahoma. Of those 5, like which are you kind of most excited to be maybe in person or just plopping yourself in front of the TV screen for the season?
Well, Texas OU is always so much fun every year. Auburn and Alabama, with how much money that Auburn's poured into that program, I think it's going to impact results on the field immediately. I really do. So that'll be a fun one to keep an eye on. Tennessee and Vandy, they really don't like each other, and that's real, and that's really fun. So, like, obviously, you're going to have that one on a TV. But with that being said, it's a bucket list for sure. Got to end up in – I'm not sure if the game's in Starkville or Oxford. But
Starkville this year.
It is in Starkville, so it's at the Dude. That's got to be a bucket list, right? Doesn't it kind of feel like a cathedral of college baseball, like a pillar for sure?
100%.
Two coaches that, in my opinion – does it sound stupid to say underrated? It feels like, or maybe there's just high expectation because they both already won national championships within the last years. So the fan bases every season are hammering the panic button. And then by the end of the year, State makes a nice run in the tournament. Obviously, Ole Miss doesn't have the end of the season that they had obviously hoped for, but it just feels like every year in the first 2 weeks, those fan bases and maybe SEC talking heads are hammering, oh, man, like, can they live up to that national championship expectation? Like, guys, it's tough to pull off to win a natty, and they went back-to-back. So, man, when you think about, obviously, the state of college baseball, I don't think we are growing to the point that we are without Chris Lemonis and Bianca. So, yeah, if I'm taking these flops and getting back in the RV and I'm going anywhere, I'm going to the state of Mississippi because it feels like they're the standard when it comes to nutty fans.
That's awesome. Yeah, to go on your question, whether I think both of them are underrated, Bianco and Lemonis are coaches in the SEC. I don't think any of in my opinion, I don't think any of those guys are underrated. But I mean, imagine us playing GM Connected or whatever and MLB The Show, and your controller is just rumbling and just pulsating on every big moment and pitch. Like, that is the amount of pressure in their seat currently from those fan bases. And Bianco especially, I think he's acknowledged it and he made some coaching staff changes in this past offseason. So one other SEC topic that I wanted to bring up to you was around the MLB draft time. This was huge. Now we're in the middle of September, but what are your thoughts on low levels of minor league ball compared to power conference college baseball? We saw William Schmidt, one of the best right-handed pitchers in that 2024 draft class, say, you know what? I'm going to be a first-round pick, but I'm okay. I'm good. I'm going to go to LSU and go play in Baton Rouge. And NIL is a big conversation in this too. What's your entire read on this situation?
Yeah, I think two things can exist in once, right? So I think back to growing up as a little kid, right? The dream is to always play professional baseball, right? So, being an eighth grader and a sophomore on our team, garnishing a ton of professional interest. Fast forward 3 years, and he's a first-round pick of the Tampa Bay Rays. He was committed to South Carolina. This is a kid that I played with in high school. Committed to South Carolina. And he opts to go play professional baseball. Minor leagues for 5-6 years, breaks into the show, lives the dream for a couple years before getting cut. And you ask him, right, any regrets? You did it. You lived the dream for a little bit. And you're like, yeah, but you can never replicate that 4 years at a college, right? Especially if you have the opportunity to play in the SEC. And I know we've done a lot of Power 5 talk, but even those Sun Belt schools who I've had the opportunity to broadcast a lot of the games, there's a lot of pride in putting on those jerseys. Those alumni, those former players are constantly coming back and feeding into the program because it means that much to them. You're not necessarily finding that at the professional level, right? It's a little bit more egocentrical. It's a job, right? It's supposed to be. And I'm just speaking out of term and out of experiences of people I know because I wasn't even kind of good enough to even clean shoes at the professional level. But you take that added experience of would you rather be the king of your campus at a 4-year SEC or ACC program, or would you rather be riding buses in hopes of beating out the guy next to you to living out a dream? There's not a wrong answer. But then when you add in the element of the NIL space, right? And I know that a lot of scouts were critical of Schmidt when he made the decision 24 hours of entering the draft. That, hey, we've been telling you all year, you're a bona fide first-round guy. You wasted our time. No, he made the best decision that he felt was not only for him, but his family as well, to put a large sum of money in his pocket, because it was a large sum of money to end up in the Baton Rouge, in the Bayou. But also to get to experience playing in the box, right? Until you're playing in potentially a postseason baseball game, you might not ever experience playing in front of crowds like that.
Correct.
how could you, I guess, pester a kid or be on someone for opting to go play in those environments week in and week out? So I don't think it's the last time we're going to see it. I think it's a huge credit to what LSU has done, not only with their NIL department, but with, I guess, the trajectory that Jay Johnson's taken this monster on. Right? Like when they won the national championship 2 years ago, yes, they don't win it without Paul Skeens and Tommy White, these big portal pickups. 70% of their team were guys from 30 minutes outside of Baton Rouge. Like he has built a mainstay, tradition, prideful program that's existed the last 50 years. So add the NIL world to it. It's like, yeah, dude, if you were a high school kid, you wouldn't want to go play in that uni in front of those fans.
100%. And yeah, just you hit the nail on the head. A couple of my bullet points that I wanted to make about this is, and that's what makes you so great of a guest is, I mean, you perfect it from like the people and the specific player point of view and standpoint. But like, just as an outsider, I see so many of these guys from SEC baseball that are just contributors, not even just stars, but like they're immediately great players in low A, high A. These guys honestly could be dropped right into double A right after their 3 seasons, after their 4 seasons in SEC baseball. And they pick up right where they would have been after 2 or 3 seasons of minor league ball. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer decision. Obviously, I love college athletics and we love college athletics. But like, if you can live some of the best of both worlds and maybe get to the MLB 6 months later than you would have thought and just be a August, September call up and your second year of minor leagues instead of your 5th, like, to me, that's a decision that I would make too.
Right. Yeah, I think the 1%, the 1% is the 1%, right? And maybe Schmidt was that 1% of guys who are like, yeah, he's going to be a high school draft guy and he'll be up in a couple of years, right? What's the problem in delaying it? Not to say that there isn't more pressure on you to go to college, but there's more time for you to develop without there being this massive financial burden of like, oh, I have to live up to this. Whereas in college, it's like these coaches are very heavily invested into making sure you are becoming the best version of yourself. So the game is getting better because I think we're investing more money into it and they're investing more time. And then all of a sudden, like you're seeing these kids that were no-brainer decisions to go get drafted in the 24th round because it was the dream. Now all of a sudden going, hey, there's a way to do this, but also like get to be a normal college student in a sense.
Yeah. And while we're on the draft topic, I know you hinted at this a little bit earlier, like your mentions are blowing up because, just this week, so Derek Bender, a 6th round pick of the Minnesota Twins, was recently released by their organization. Ironically, playing my Detroit Tigers organization, the Flying Tigers of Lakeland. The story here was that, he was tipping pitches, but Lakeland, to Jeff Passan's article, wasn't using it, and it was about the integrity of the game, and they told Minnesota that he was doing it after the game. That's how this whole thing was figured out. There's obviously 2 sides of the story that we want to hear, but I just wanted you to have a platform and be able to talk about it because you mentioned it at the beginning, and I asked you if it was okay if I brought it up. And go ahead, dude.
I don't care. Yeah, dude, man, for anyone who's followed along in my journey, like, dude, social media is not a real place, and I have struggled to figure like that out. And I, to my fault, like sometimes I treat Twitter like a diary, man. Like, I love to tell stories, but I'm also like in it for the people that have like looked out for me. So when I see Passan or Jeff Passan, or whatever his name is, he does great work. When he tweets out like, yo, Derek Bender's been released of the Minnesota Twins, he was like literally telling guys what pitches were coming. And then, there were reports that he told his buddies that, hey, man, I just wish the season was over. I like tweet from the hip, man, like I always have, like I did when I was 17, right?
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I broadcast college football, basketball, and baseball. I was really fortunate enough to break in and do some top 25 baseball with Coastal Carolina this year. That really helped me kind of advance in my career. So forever, grateful for them. And a lot of the tweets and mentions are like, yo, bro, you can't just send this out because he's your friend. That's exactly why I did it, man. Derek Bender, when I was doing my Pencil Talk interviews, like Ted Lasso has said, man, I'd rather you be curious than judgmental. Derek Bender was very curious from the jump. He's a kid that has gone viral before for Pippin homers in the Cape Cod League. This is a very passionate player. So when I fire a tweet out last night after I see this, report, I go, man, dude, this does not sound like Derek Bender. This is an amazing human being. With that being said, anyone who's been in that dugout, right? If you haven't been and you're casting stones, dude, these are long years. This guy's probably played 150 plus games.
I know.
Which I found out, not even close. He hasn't even played close to 150 games. So that was inaccurate on my end. But he's been playing baseball since January.
Probably 100 games.
I go, if you've ever played summer baseball, you have heard guys say that, jokingly around, right? So when I tweet that out, I'm not, affirming what he did, that I'm cool with tipping pitches. I understand the repercussions that it has, right, on his teammates if he actually did it. All I said was hey, dude, if you haven't been paying attention to college baseball and minor league baseball, before you start using heavy verbiage and slurs to shout this dude out, just, I don't know, breathe a second. I just think we live in such a clickbait world sometimes that I wish I hadn't inputted myself into the middle of this hindsight. Like I said, but the hatred and the visceral reaction is far deeper than a really fun, heartfelt story of when I talked about Derek Bender. You ever ask, why does he wear a purple sleeve for, Coastal Carolina as a green team? There are storylines. Those videos and those stories that we've written, those don't go viral, but this kind of stuff does. I understand why it went viral. And I am not saying that if he did do this, that hey, I'm okay with it, right? I'm not cool with him cheating and then him bailing on his teammates. I'm just saying that the dude that I know, the character that I have seen from afar, that was my initial reaction. So we shot from the hip. It has not been received very well. Again, not a huge social media guy. I'm educating myself, but when your comments are more than your likes, they're usually not saying
that's the other thing about the whole minor leagues too that I didn't mention was a lot of it's just the individuality of it, and it's not the team game as much. I guess come playoff time it should be, but there's going to be a second story or a second side of the story. I mean, this guy is currently without a job, and he's a really damn good baseball player, one of the best catchers in that 2024 draft class. And what I'm interested to hear is if there is a why. And this is a really passionate winner, not even just baseball player. This guy won wherever he was at. It wasn't the year or season that Coastal Carolina wanted to have, carried into maybe the minor league system. He something was grinding his gears about it, where a lot of guys are looking at their stats every single day. And that's something that I'm really curious to see if that was a reason why he wanted that thing to end.
I would say that too. I've never played minor league affiliated professional baseball. I was a well below average college ball player. Everyone has dreamed of the opportunity of playing at the professional level. So don't think I belittled that notion and how important it is to take advantage of those opportunities. I'm just saying if it is true, right? And not obviously they've released him, so there's got to be an element of there is true. I just feel bad for the guy, right? I feel terrible that he's found himself in this position. I feel terrible for those that are involved in this deal. But you're right, man. There's no surprise that those college coaches are coaching for their livelihoods, right? So there's much more. There's a bigger emphasis on winning, right? Now I'm not to say that that's not the case in the minor league level. There's a minor league team where I live here in Charleston, South Carolina, the Tampa Bay Rays. They've won 3 straight championships in a row. It's a very prideful deal here in the area that these guys are kind of the standard, right? The Tampa Bay is known for having these loaded farm systems, but it's evident. So I'm not saying that these guys weren't playing for something really important, but if the ego side of things creeps in and all these guys are just worried about making sure, like, I got to play well to keep a job, right? It's a different kind of level. So I don't know if that plays into it. I'm sure as hell not saying it's okay, but to what you said, like, there's got to be two sides of the story. That was the last line of it. I think that kind of got lost in probably me contradicting myself in my own tweet, but you win some, you lose.
I'll finish this and then we'll turn the page on the topic. But the Lakeland Flying Tigers, of the organization that I like, the Detroit Tigers, go out and hire this kid. He helped you win a playoff game, playoff series. Like, we're struggling. Like, currently, catcher's not a deep position in our organization right now. Like, this kid's a baller. Go get him. He's now on the street. Like, come on now, guys. Let's jump into, I think, the biggest topic of the offseason, the most impactful one. And we're like kind of in the middle on whether or not this is going to happen ASAP. We're talking like before the like in the fall of 2025 or the next 3 or 4 years. Not sure when it's going to actually take impact here. Jack, how in touch, have you been with this offseason House versus NCAA settlement case? And for those, I'll let you think about what you'll say on it. For those that aren't really aware, the main issue that the NCAA wants to do is they want to police how athletes are getting paid. The NCAA would prefer athletes to be paid by the institutions, not boosters or NIL collectives. And their plan is to introduce a salary cap and or revenue sharing system that, would pay the college athletes. And at this, I think this would make the athletes become employees of the schools. How much have you kept up with the House versus NCAA settlement case? And I think the biggest part of all of this is somehow our scholarship limits are tied up into this woven web that is college athletics. I mean, this thing, we had the news in the middle of August that we were going to get 34 college baseball scholarships. And that is just amazing news. But then it comes out that a week later, oh yeah, your roster size is also being shrinked from 40 to 35. And that was a little bit of a concern for a lot of coaches. And they maybe a little bit too quickly started to make some cuts, thinking that, I've got to get out and ahead of this and let some of these guys, land on their feet before they really get in trouble in the fall of 2025 and they don't have a place to play. But if this thing all goes to trial and there's no decision here at the end of the month in September, when this is expected to come to a close, this could go on for years in trials, and we have no idea when it would take action. So the question, I guess, you can go anywhere with this. It's a big freaking topic, but go ahead.
You saw me check my phone when you brought it up, because we had talked about it a little bit before we jumped on about what direction do we want to take this in? Because to me, it's like Pandora's box has been opened. There's no protocol anymore. You know what I mean? So I think what's important, if our audience is just college baseball people, right? Like, for those that have played, that those fall rosters are really heavy, right? You got to have arms to be able to throw in the fall.
Yeah, we were talking pre-show, dude. I played in the NAIA. We didn't have scholarships. It just depended on which baseball program wanted to spend the most money on baseball. We had 77 kids on half grant scholarships. Like,
crazy.
It's crazy talk. And we're talking about you're now limiting this to 35. It's crazy. Jack, continue.
These coaches are like hand tied, to your point, because you had 77 dudes in that locker room because you had to have guys throw against each other in order to have a competitive fall, to figure out what you have.
Yeah.
Right now you're going to have 35. We're not wishing envy on anyone, but you get to a college baseball season, go ahead and get ready for 4 or 5 arms to be hurt. That's the nature of the beast right now, and that number just continues to keep climbing. So you cut that number all the way down. Are you allowed to have a taxi squad of dudes that are just kind of hanging out waiting to be activated? this is sounding a whole lot more professional than what it used to be. And I understand we're implementing money, so that's why we're moving in that direction. The thing that I wanted to take note of too was they're granting 34 scholarships. It's important to know that these coaches don't have to give 34 out, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's coaches, it's schools. You have to balance this with women's athletics as well. Right. Title IX is going to play a big part in this. You have to give an equal number or very close to an equal number of scholarships between boys athletes and girls athletes.
It's why the boys at 11.7 have branded, I was so blessed to jump on board with them because it's like, just like they're the best, but like it's the catchiest name in the world. Because if your understanding of the sport, like 11.7 scholarships, the number that they jumped on, right?
Yeah,
it's not an accident that it all coincided with Title IX, right? Which is an unbelievable thing for equality and to make sure that everyone's getting equal opportunity. But now, like if it's now just dependent school to school on how you're going to be able to deliver on those, right? Like it becomes a massive competitive advantage if you're able to use all 34 versus not. And then all of a sudden, like you've completely lost like that sense of like a level playing field. When do we get to see another Coastal Carolina mid-major team or an Oral Roberts from a year ago make a run at this thing? If, hey, they're already facing teams with an incredible amount of resources, but now they're like literally just have actually more scholarship too. It's a fickle beast.
100%. And we talked about it pre-show, and we were the take that I have for this is that I believe one of the biggest winners, if this 34 scholarships jumps into place pretty soon, I think West Coast baseball is a gigantic winner. And specifically, I'm looking at the Big West. Like, this is a conference without football. And we're talking, they have 104 scholarships for football in this new NCAA settlement where the scholarships are all tied into place. Santa Barbara, Irvine, Poly, UC San Diego, Northridge, UC Davis has a football team, but Long Beach State, Bakersfield, Fullerton, Riverside, these guys, there's no telling in how much they want to invest in their baseball program, and they can, unless the Big West, because there is conversation that conferences could put a cap on how many scholarships each of their members can offer for specific sports. But this could become the Wild West, and I think the Big West could really, really excel, and they could keep a lot of those homegrown talent players away from going to the SEC. Hey, we can give you this full ride, and you'll be close to home. You're not going to go into the southeast portion of the country and 10,000 miles away from family or whatever. I'm not good at math or geography off the top of my head, but like that's a huge recruitment like pitch to a kid. And all of a sudden you're going to get some of these old Titans back into the forefront of our game. And I'm super excited. And I hope just for that aspect that this does go through.
I like that. You think too, it's in the same breath as NIL, where it's like, I don't know if anyone has watched that new Amazon doc. Watched a little bit of it last night, where LSU's kind of been at the forefront, right? The NIL money it's very standoutish to the 1%, right? Like the Livy Dunns and the Jaden Daniels and the Angel Reese, those that are in there, on the.
How did Tommy White not get in there?
I said the same thing, dude.
Well, he won a national championship, and he's the star player of the team, and he didn't get in
because it came a year before that. In their defense, like the opening scene was Jaden Daniels scoring against a Bryce Young-led Alabama team. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I guess that they filmed this before, but how did Tommy White, Bill Skeens? Like, these guys won a natty, for God's sakes.
Dylan Cruz was there the year before.
I know, and they were already like rolling in the dough. But they talk about like Dick Gordon, who's kind of like a huge catalyst in LSU baseball's NIL. So it's cool to at least be able to tie it in that direction. But there's this idea that like they even had like an Olympic hurdler medalist, and she's broken world records, and she's got 56,000 followers on Instagram, and she wasn't making a single dollar. Right. So it was more so than just, popularity on social media and excellence in your sport. Right. It's deeper than that. And they figured out how to unfold it better than anyone else has. Same things goes with these rulings and these court hearings, where it's like whoever figures out how to play this game, right, where the Big West isn't going to have to necessarily worry about Title IX with how many scholarships football take up. Like all of a sudden, it's a level playing field. They can figure out how to beat them to the punch. Not only are they going to win, they're going to win almost immediately. So to your point, like, come on, who doesn't want to see Long Beach in a super like that? That'll fire anybody up with a heartbeat.
For sure. But yeah, like you're talking about ways that these athletes are being paid. In my opinion, I'm afraid that this is going to drag out for multiple years, because I think that it's beyond delusional of the NCAA to think that they'll be able to police how these athletes are going to get paid. Like that's the whole, they've had like this black eye and they haven't really been able to win court cases in the last couple of years. They've been losing left and right in court to various people. And I just, you're not the one policing how, it's fair to pay this person $1 million. If whatever little like company thinks that it's viable and like they're going to make their return, and it words are hard, but like,
especially in this conversation where it's like, they don't even know which words to use, dude.
Yeah. If the company thinks that they're going to get their return of investment back and maybe even more, you can't police how much they're allowed to pay. Right.
And how can you fault a kid for taking the money?
Exactly.
Right. Well, it's insane to think that you're going to ask these kids to leave money on the table because there's stipulations across the country. What we are moving towards, and I think with Pandora's box being open, as I've already said, like what does need to happen is if we are moving to revenue generating, like sharing, we are moving to a scary place where like they are going to start unionizing this thing, which does sound, I guess, not inappropriate, because they're still like kids and student athletes at the same time. But like if we are going to start paying this amount of money, I don't know if they are going to grant that 5th year of eligibility for everybody, but being able to bounce from school to school, like you have to police it and monitor it in a constructive way where it's like, all right, you're signing a 3-year contract. This is what you're making, but you can't go anywhere. Right. Yeah. That would be a part of that union like settlement. So that I don't necessarily see something. The transfer portals, there are as many good stories. There are some bad as well. So again, it's so tough to police because every situation is different than the next,
Yeah, and politics is going to come into play too, especially with when we get into the talk of unionizing, because especially in our sport, a lot of the successful and big programs are in the southeast portion of the country, and there aren't a ton of unions there.
Nowhere.
I think so. Like, before we end this conversation, we have to talk about the latest tectonic plates shifting in the ever-evolving conference realignment mess. The Pac-12 has acquired Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, and Colorado State in what was mainly a football move. Right. The catch here for us college baseball lovers and followers, and like Boise and Colorado State don't have baseball programs. So the Pac-12 only has 4 baseball programs in its conference for the 2026 season and beyond. And the Mountain West, where these schools are coming from, they are taking 2 baseball programs from the Mountain West. And now the MWC only has 4 baseball programs total. So neither conference would currently qualify to earn an auto bid into the NCAA tournament by current NCAA rules. So obviously that sucks. That was going to be the answer that you would give me. That's not what I'm going to ask you here. I think the bigger piece of news here in all of this Pac-12 talk is that we still got Oregon State. Our beloved Beavs are trapped. I think their baseball program and fans particularly were excited about the independent venture for the most part. Do you have any opinions on what's going on here out west and with the Beavers? Because I feel like this year they're in the college baseball series. They're playing Baylor, Auburn, and Ohio State. That's not going to go away. Oregon State's going to get invited to all these MTEs, no matter what conference they're in. And you can schedule in the non-conference 3 SEC teams before SEC starts their conference play, and they don't do any non-conference little weekends. But the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, they mix in non-conference during their conference slates, and you'll be able to schedule for the final 10 weeks as good of a competition as you want. And I think a lot of fans were excited for that. So what's your level of concern with Oregon State and or the Pac-12 in general, Washington State too?
When it kind of disintegrated, right? Like the entire Pac-12, your first thought is, well, Corvallis is like a college baseball staple, right? Like that's to your point, they're going to continue to dominate West Coast recruiting, and they're going to continue to win games. Guys are going to continue to want to go play for them, right? Number 1 freaking pick in the draft, for goodness sakes, right?
Yeah.
So that's not going to disappear. I think then there was excitement of like, oh, maybe this is just like the Notre Dame of football, right? Like they can still be in a way, right? Like a decade and a half ago, you almost call Oregon State a college baseball blue, but without question a staple. So how do you continue to stay within the conversation? Make sure that you're competing for national championships. And again, like they don't want to become an afterthought just because they didn't like sell out for football. I don't know what the answer is. To me, I still look at them like maybe this is an independent team where Notre Dame goes and schedules, 3 to 4 really tough football like matchups every year that have become tradition. Maybe they take on a similar approach, the baseball world. Do they keep? Is it the Civil War between them and Oregon?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. So they continue the Civil War, play those guys every year, which will help the RPI. They continue to go play a really difficult non-conference, and maybe because they're independent, I don't know how that, helps or hurts financially. They just travel a ton and they go play in those big time tournaments, like you mentioned at Globe Life, and any way to figure out how to, like, I guess not scam over the RPI, but to remain relevant in that conversation. Because college baseball is better when Oregon State's in it.
Yeah, 100%. Jack, I really appreciate you coming on. We were talking about it pre-show. Just scratch the itch, the college baseball itch. I mean, this was fun. A lot of different news topics that happened over the off season. I appreciate you coming on. And dude, fall ball is right around the corner, and if not started already. I had my eyes on Pitt and Clemson today on the ball field. Pitt, of course, where I went to college, and Clemson, where the Michigan old Michigan head coach is currently at. So that was fun to keep tabs on for a little bit. But dude, it's right around the corner. I'm getting excited, and we're 2 months away from preseason talk when we're previewing a lot of these teams. So I'm ready. I hate this time of year with the off season and no college baseball, because to be honest, I enjoy this brand a hell of a lot more than the MLB.
Ooh, I hear you.
Yeah, I do.
I appreciate you having me on, man. You're absolutely dominating, dude. Just keep working your tail off. It's obviously picking up steam, and you're a ton of fun to listen to. And I'm blessed you had me on to talk some shop today. I'd love to run it back soon, brother.
I love trading the kind words. I appreciate it. Have a great day. This has been the College Baseball Experience. You better start thinking about yours. Adios, amigos.
Love that.